So today I just wanted to talk about my channel and do some of the Q&A questions that I asked for, I think a couple months ago now. Just have kind of a chat. Do you have anything big or small that you are currently looking forward to? I've been making an effort to plan little things here and there to keep the spirits up. I love this, and yes, I try to do the same thing. Kind of short, long term, I have a solo little trip planned in June if everything goes according to plan, which I am very, very excited about, and you should see vlogs from that as well. So that is definitely something that I am looking forward to extremely. Kind of immediately, I just started learning French, and that has been so much fun. I don't know even why really, but it just has been. It's been such a nice escape from the really, really stressful, awful, world right now. And then also just my channel. So I guess we can do the channel update now. I decided to split my channel. I did post about this in the community tab on YouTube. I think they only show community tab on the desktop or something. I know I don't see anybody's community posts like almost ever. I did decide to make a dedicated language channel, and so all of my language videos have been moved over there, and this channel is going to stay books and video essays. And I am really, really excited about it. I hope that this will better suit, everybody who watches both types of videos. I think that my content is going to get better for this reason. I realized once I did it how much I was holding back on certain things because I felt like they didn't suit my channel as one combined channel. Once I was in a space where I could make dedicated language videos or make dedicated book videos and not really have to worry about appealing to everybody, I realized how much that was holding me back, and I didn't realize it at all. I'm going to take my glasses off because there's a huge glare on them. So anyway, that is the update. The language channel will be linked, and so if you are only interested in languages, you can subscribe there and unsubscribe here if you want. Whatever you would like to do. If you are a book or video essay person and you're already subscribed here, there's really nothing to change. We'll do some Instagram questions. Let's do favorite trash novel. I don't read a lot of really trashy, quote unquote, socially, novels that would be considered super trashy, because I hate romance, not because of a superiority complex or anything. It just makes me so uncomfortable to read. I can't read it. But I would say the trashiest series that I read was the Lux series. I think it's YA. It's not that trashy from a raunchiness perspective, but it is just kind of pure entertainment, not a lot of substance there. I'm better at trash TV than trash novels, I would say. What age should schools start teaching foreign language? I am far from an expert on education, but I would say very young. I would say if a kid comes to school only speaking the language of the country that they are, the language that the school is going to be spoken in, they should start learning something else almost right away. Maybe the second year after they've kind of adjusted to the school process, maybe start something right after that. If they come in already speaking a home language that is not the dominant language, then I think give them a year in their home language if possible, if not, the dominant language, and then start fostering their home language at school as well. I think it's ridiculous that we don't think that we can teach, children a second language, but yet if someone doesn't speak the dominant language of the country, they're expected to immediately learn the dominant language, be able to go to school in the dominant language with hardly any help. It's a very strange double standard that we have. But anyway, follow up to that question, give kids a choice on the language or the one that would be the most beneficial in the given area. I do think that you should have a choice, but I also think that it would be good if your options were something that would be beneficial in that area. I think I've seen people in the language community from Australia say that Australia does this. If there's a lot of Japanese immigrants in an area, then they will offer Japanese, that sort of thing. Whereas the US is almost exclusively Spanish and French, sometimes Spanish, French, and German, but like rarely. Sometimes Latin, but mostly Spanish and French. And Spanish is obviously very, very useful here. French is, useful in the world. I don't know that it's useful in the United States, but that's fine. But yeah, I would say like where I live, they should offer Spanish, Hindi, Japanese, Chinese. I think that choice is good, and I also don't think that languages have to be useful in order to be, worthwhile to learn. But I think that, because that's the community that's there, it would of course be good if you could learn the languages of the community. Also, if you have a large immigrant community, then obviously you're going to be more likely to have kids coming into the school with those being their home languages. And so you're going to be making a much more welcoming environment for them if there are teachers that can speak those languages, if other students can speak those languages. I just think there's a lot of benefits to catering the options to the area. If I could only visit one place forever, over and over, where would it be? Well, it depends. So partially, this just makes me want to cheat because what's your definition of place? A country? As far as countries that I have already been to, so I know that I really like them, it would be Switzerland. I absolutely loved Switzerland, and I like that it has like metropolitan areas, it has like large cities, but it also has mountains and lakes and, just very, of course, legendary scenery. But I also could very easily say California. Very similar reasoning. There's, tons of stuff going on there, but there's also a huge variety of natural scenery. My favorite animal is probably a cat. Probably not surprising to people, but I would say a cat, yeah. But my favorite, wild animals would be otters and tigers. As a vegetarian, is there a veggie option that can't compete with the meat option? I'm sure lots, but the biggest thing is cheese. That's obviously not a meat, but I have been trying to move towards being more vegan. I've been a vegetarian for over 10 years. So, I generally tend towards vegan options in general, but I still eat things that aren't, I still eat cheese, occasionally eggs as ingredients and stuff. And I would say cheese is the number one thing. They have not perfected vegan cheese yet. They've perfected vegan ice cream, vegan butter, all kinds of things, but they have not gotten cheese yet. And then I would say seafood, there's no alternative to that as far as I'm aware. I don't need one, I really don't miss it at all, but if I wanted one, I don't think that there is one. The best alternative, so if you want an alternative for beef, Impossible meat, 100%. The sausage is amazing, and also the, hamburger or whatever. Don't necessarily trust it if you get it from a restaurant that's how it tastes, because a lot of times I have found that they just kind of slap it on the grill and cook it with no seasoning or anything, which does not obviously taste very good, because that doesn't even taste very good when they do it with beef. But anyway, and for chicken, I have forgotten the name of it, but I will put the packaging on here. This is so good in chicken tacos, so good. And Just Egg is a good alternative to eggs. It doesn't taste just like eggs, but it fills the same role very nicely. Favorite YA novel or series? Probably The Hunger Games. Rereading that recently, I have just been so impressed with how kind of revolutionary it is, I feel like it's pretty hardcore. I don't think that it got the reputation that it deserved necessarily for that. I think that people really latched on to the love triangle aspect and stuff, but the politics are pretty on point, I think. But also bear in mind that I am super behind on YA. I really have gone the past decade hardly reading any YA. So there are so many authors like Nnedi Okorafor and other amazing authors coming out with all of these incredible books that are just so much more, innovative and revolutionary than anything that I've read. I'm getting a lot of judgment from this older couple walking by. This is a deep question. Growing up conservative, was there a tipping point that made me switch? So, honestly, no. There wasn't a tipping point. There were so many things. I think I always knew that I wasn't as conservative as the people around me, but I was still very, very conservative. Like, I don't want to give myself more credit than I deserved because I was militantly conservative. There were just so many things that piled up. I just kept finding things like in the doctrine that conflicted with what I felt like was right. And I was constantly having to do all these back bends and twists and, oh, well, the Bible says this, but like, this is the translation issue that makes that a thing. And then really, honestly, becoming non-religious and becoming liberal were very intertwined for me. I know that they are not for everybody, and I do not think that they have to be, but for me they were, because my politics were so wrapped up in religion. And I do think that that is the case for so many people in the United States. And I think that's part of why the religious right is so concerned with keeping people conservative, because they know that it's a possibility that that might happen. That if your politics expand, then you might loosen your grasp on religion and vice versa. But I also know people for whom that has not been the case. So I would say that there were many issues that started me to move that direction. I would say police shootings were one of them. And it wasn't like I became like Black Lives Matter at the time. I did, to my shame, I didn't really. But I was like, that doesn't seem right. Why would we agree with that, So that was one of them. LGBTQ plus stuff was another one. It just didn't sit right with me, None of it sat right with me, and I was tired of doing all of these mental gymnastics to make it work. And so gradually I just started to kind of pull away from that. And I did the whole thing that I know so many former conservatives do, the whole socially liberal, fiscally conservative song and dance that everybody feels the need to. It's like a phase, it's a phase you have to go through, I think. So I did that for a little bit. I was actually in that phase, the first presidential election that I was old enough to vote in. Abortion was really the last thing that I changed perspectives on. Honestly, if that election had happened even probably 6 months later, I probably would have voted differently than I did. But unfortunately it didn't. But it didn't even matter. It was the second Obama election and he won anyway. So there was no neat, tidy, abrupt change of direction. It would be so much easier if there had been, because then I would be like, oh, that's what worked. But I think it was just reading a lot more different types of things. I remember going to the library one time and getting out a whole bunch of books by atheists and, liberals and stuff. And I was like, I've spent my whole life learning this perspective. It is time for me to hear this perspective, and if I already suspected at the time that I would agree with them, but I was like, if I don't agree with them, then I don't agree with them. So I was like, well, damn, now I gotta really sit down and decide what I believe. And obviously I didn't. You don't just sit down generally and decide what you believe, but I'm pretty sure if I went back to some journals that I had at the time, there would be some entries being like, wow, I really think I might be an atheist and a liberal. Yeah, and then there have been many things over the years that I have continued to kind of adapt my perspective on, because I think if you change your mind on something, it kind of makes you more able to be flexible and to be like, well, I thought I had all the answers at one point and I did not. So maybe I should be open now to the concept that I still might not have all of the answers. I think that that's good. I think that more people should be that way. I know so many people who grew up liberal and just can't understand how anybody wouldn't be. And it's very difficult for them to change their mind on anything. And same with people who grew up conservative, obviously. So anyway, that was a long answer to that question. But the answer is no. There was not any one thing that changed my mind. There were thousands, probably millions of things. And final question, again from YouTube. Which Jeff Vandermeer would you recommend to start out with? So I have not read Jeff Vandermeer's entire works yet. I have read the series that Annihilation is part of, the Southern Reach trilogy. I have read the Born series or collection of works. And I've read his newest book, Hummingbird Salamander. So he has older series, two, that I have not read yet, so bear that in mind. But I would say, if you're a person who generally likes literary books or fantasy books, then I would start with the Southern Reach trilogy. I think that is a very safe option for almost anybody to start with. If you generally like YA or science fiction, then I would say Born. And if you generally like thrillers, then I would say Hummingbird Salamander. Hummingbird Salamander is my least favorite book of his that I have read yet, but if you don't generally like fantasy and you haven't stepped into the weird genre at all yet, then I do think Hummingbird Salamander is a decent place to start because it is a gentler introduction, but Born is also a fairly safe option. So in general, to most people, I recommend starting with the Southern Reach trilogy, so start with Annihilation. There's a plane overhead. So that is everything for this update and Q&A. Check out the language channel if you are interested, and I will see you back here in another video. Thanks.